Hello and welcome to Mad About Film. Today I'm going to review Alfonso Cuaron's Roma, which is a family drama set in Mexico. Let's have a quick look at the trailer.
Buenas noches, Cleo. Buenas noches, Sol.
Roma is a film that's set in Mexico and is supposedly Alfonso Cuaron's semi-autobiographical, written and directed masterpiece, written by himself, obviously, directed and edited by himself, I hear. But it's set in Mexico where he also grew up and is a kind of a homage to his childhood and also to his family construct in his life. So I hear that's the case. I'm not 100% sure if that is correct, but anyway, do Google it or IMDb it if I am wrong. But also, one thing that's interesting about this is the way the film is portrayed. It comes across as like a Fellini film or a black and white 60s Godard film or something like that, and the way it was shot is really, really interesting. The film centers around a maid who works in a middle-class kind of family background in Mexico in the 60s and 70s. Possibly 60s, mainly. It seems like the decor was mainly set around the 60s and the 70s. And the main character, Cleo, is played by Yalitza Aparicio. Marina de Tavira plays Sofia, who is the mother of the family. So in the family there is the 4 kids. There's Sofia, who's the mother, and then there's Cleo, who's the maid. And that's the centre piece of the kind of the story. The father is largely absent, and the thing is, the whole story is about the dynamic of the family and how they actually all get on. The way the film presents itself is that there's quite a slow start to the film, and it's obviously filmed in black and white, and there's all these kind of pans across like the view of the scenery. So basically, it kind of gives you context of where the story is actually being told. So you get a real sense of like the space of the house and the kind of environment which within they live, which is kind of a grand house, and that gives context to sort of like the idea of the middle class family, and obviously the sort of the differences between sort of like the class system that existed obviously in Mexico. It's really interesting to have the story focus from Cleo's point of view, because she's a maid who obviously serves the family, but obviously she seems to be a part of the family. It's very much like that as well in Bangladesh, where my family's from, and kind of I can understand that in class structures that basically people who need work and need money, they do work for sort of well-to-do families, and they become adopted by the family as such. And this is very much the case in the story of Roma. The kids see Cleo as kind of a bigger sister or like a mother figure, and when Sofia and the husband are largely absent and obviously working, then obviously Cleo picks up the pieces and looks after the kids and makes the food and all the rest, so she becomes really a part of the family. The way it's shot is really interesting because the pans that Alfonso Cuarón actually allows you to watch within the context of where you are and really set the tone of the environment really allows you to kind of sort of be absorbed into the film, and there's some really, really beautiful black and white sort of monochromatic shots which are available to the viewer, and you really kind of get absorbed into the film. It's a very, very slow paced film, and at the same time, even though there's a slow pace to it, you can feel that you're kind of going along. Alfonso Cuarón cuts at exactly the right time to be able for you to enjoy the scene, then to be able to kind of move on at the right methodical time for you to be absorbed into the narrative. As you continue to see this narrative through Cleo's eyes, you kind of see more about the character, more about herself, and more about her background. You get the context of where she came from in terms of a village, and obviously where she came to the city to work. It gives you a real good sense of the class structure that was prevalent in Mexican society at the time. It's really interesting to see the way the film progresses, and the slow-moving nature of the film at the beginning kind of continues and continues. And then as you get drawn into more and more of the story, you kind of realise that as you're seeing through Cleo's eyes, you get more drawn into the world that she's in, and that makes the dramatic effect kind of more impactful. There's moments obviously where sort of Cleo sort of goes out with her friend and she meets another guy, and there's a guy that she meets called Fermin, and they kind of fall in love, and there's a homage to all these kind of like different places, like they go to the cinema, and Alfonso Cuarón kind of like evokes the idea of sort of like going on a date into the cinema, which we all have done, I'm sure, at some point in our lives, and he does that really well and evokes that really, really well. The real base nature of the story comes down to the idea of these are women living in a man's world, and there's a real patriarchal society that they have to kind of absorb themselves into, and they have to fight against the patriarchal society. They have to survive as women. They have to kind of work and feed their families and look after their children, and the point is that I think Alfonso Cuarón's kind of pointing out how men are kind of like distant and men can be narcissistic and kind of like self-absorbed and selfish, and they do their own thing. That's very true of the character Fermin, played by Jorge Antonio Guerrero, and the father also, as well. They're really absent, and he goes off with his mistress and stuff like that. But the point is that it's really interesting to see how the women cope, and that is the point of the story. I think it's the love and the loss and the fire and the kind of idea of how strong these women were, which is really interesting, because you see strong women today, you know, in today's society, and obviously standing up for their rights as they should, but in the 70s obviously much harder and much more prevalent. And I think Alfonso Cuaron's trying to say that these women were really, really strong, much more before there was a trend about being a strong woman. So I think it's kind of like knowing that the roots of the strength of women kind of lies in this film, and I think that's kind of the key to Roma. It's a real homage to Mexico, it's a real homage to cinema, and the way he contextualised the story and the incidents that happen, it gives you a sense of time and place, the ideas of revolution, the ideas of change, the ideas of like having to deal with family circumstances, and it's a really emotional film in that sense. It's a very long film, it's 2 hours 15 or so, but it's also kind of, it's worth your patience, and that's the key thing about Roma. So yeah, it's really, really an interesting film to watch. A little bit long. I mean, that's the thing I feel. It could have been cut down and trimmed down a little bit here and there. I mean, especially with the pans that were kind of annoying me at a certain point. But essentially, Roma is worth a watch. And it's available to watch on Netflix right now, so I think you should go and see it, or just watch it, or put it on, or stream it, or put it on your laptop and watch it in your spare time. But there's a rewards to watching Roma, and I think that's what Alfonso Cuarón was trying to achieve. So for me, Roma gets 4.5 out of 5 in this review. And if you have any thoughts about Roma, I'd love to hear what you think about it in the comments below. And if you do like that video, please hit that like button and subscribe. And also, if you'd like to see another video, just click here.